Why are you pushing me away? Just talk to me.
There's nothing left to say, Emily. It's over.
We can't keep doing this. You have to talk to me.
I know, I'm trying.
Please, Alex, just talk to me.
There's nothing left to say, Emily.
I'm sorry.
I wasn't the kind of man who believed in love. At least, not the way she seemed to. She kept offering me her heart every time, without fail. Every time I turned her down, she came back, like nothing had changed. Like I hadn't just shattered her hope once again. It wasn't that I didn't care about her. No, that would have been easier. I did care. But I was too focused on the bigger picture. Too focused on climbing the ladder of success, on achieving things that mattered. Power. Recognition. Respect. Those were the things I wanted. And love? Love was a distraction, a weakness I couldn't afford. Alex, I don't understand, she said, her voice soft, almost pleading, as she sat across from me. I keep giving you everything, and you keep pushing me away. I leaned back in my chair, trying to keep my tone steady, my voice confident. I'm not ready for this, Emily. Not now. I have too much on my plate. Her brow furrowed, and I saw the familiar hurt flash across her face. I hated seeing that. But I hated even more the way it tugged at me, forcing me to feel something I didn't want to feel. Guilt. Regret. I've always been here for you, she continued, her voice quiet but firm. I've stood by you. And you keep rejecting me. What am I supposed to do with that? I clenched my jaw, trying not to let her words get to me. You should understand. I'm not the right man for you. I'm just focused on something else. I can't afford distractions. Emily stared at me for a long moment, her eyes searching mine, almost as if she was looking for a crack, a hint of the person I used to be, the one who cared, the one who wasn't so consumed by ambition. But there was nothing there. There was only the mask I had carefully crafted, the person I had become in the pursuit of success. You don't think I'm capable of seeing the bigger picture, she asked, her voice tinged with sadness. I understand ambition. But I also understand love. I understand what it means to stand by someone, no matter what. I'm not asking you to choose me over everything else. But I want to be a part of your life, Alex. I want to be there for you. Her words stung, but I pushed the feeling away. I couldn't afford to feel anything. Not now. Not when I was this close to the top. You'll find someone else, I said, trying to sound dismissive. Someone who can give you everything you want. Someone who's ready for a relationship. I'm not him. I'm not the right guy. Emily's eyes welled up, but she quickly wiped the tears away, her chin trembling. You're wrong, Alex. I don't want anyone else. I want you. My heart twisted, but I forced myself to look away. And that's the problem, Emily. You're holding on to something that's never going to happen. I'm not the man you think I am. And you deserve better than that. I stood up abruptly, not wanting to hear her response, not wanting to see the hurt in her eyes any longer. We're done talking. She stood too, her hands trembling at her sides. You don't even see it, do you? You don't see what you're doing to us. You don't see what you're throwing away. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The truth was, deep down, I knew she was right. But I refused to admit it. I had goals, ambitions. I had a future that was going to be incredible. I didn't have time for distractions. And yet, in the back of my mind, I couldn't help but wonder if I was making the biggest mistake of my life. But that thought was quickly shoved down by the more pressing reality that I couldn't afford to fail. Not now. You should go, I said, my voice cold. She looked at me for a long moment, as if hoping I'd change my mind, but she finally nodded, turning to leave. I didn't watch her go. I couldn't. Instead, I turned to the window, staring out at the skyline, the city sprawling beneath me like a world waiting to be conquered. I had no room for her in this world. Not anymore. The silence that followed was deafening. I didn't want to feel guilty. I didn't want to feel regret. But I couldn't stop it. For the briefest moment, I asked myself, what if I was wrong? But I quickly silenced that voice. I wasn't wrong. I was on the path to greatness, and she just wasn't part of that. As I stood there, looking out over everything I was building, I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, I was losing something far more valuable than I realized. But I wasn't ready to admit that yet. Not to myself. Not to anyone. I told myself I didn't care when Emily disappeared from my life. I really did. But deep down, I knew it wasn't true. It's just easier to lie to yourself than admit the truth. The truth that I had lost something precious, something I didn't understand until it was gone. After our last conversation, she walked out of my life for good. I never heard from her again. And somehow, that made it easier for me to bury the guilt. She was gone, and I was free to focus on the things that really mattered, things like my career, my future. I climbed the ladder. Step by step, I built something. People started noticing me. I had power, or at least I was getting closer to it. But the thing with power is, it's never enough. It's a hunger that keeps gnawing at you, pushing you to go further, to do more. And that's exactly what I did. I threw myself into my work, day and night. I became obsessed with proving myself, with showing the world that I was the one who deserved to be at the top. The years passed. I made a name for myself, earned respect, and got everything I'd ever wanted. But there was a small hole in my chest, a hole I never acknowledged. I thought about Emily sometimes, but I quickly pushed those thoughts away. She was just a chapter in the past, a story I had written and closed, and it was time to move on. Then, everything changed the day I saw her again. I was in the middle of a meeting, going through a list of new business partnerships, when my assistant walked in, her eyes wide with surprise. "Mr. Alex," she said, her voice trembling. "There's someone here to see you." I frowned. "I'm busy." "Who is it?" "Emily," she said, her voice almost a whisper. The name hit me like a punch in the gut. My heart skipped, but I immediately buried the feeling. Emily? What was she doing here? The woman I had rejected, the one who had moved on. Why was she back? "I'll see her," I said, trying to sound indifferent. I told myself I didn't care. But when she walked through that door, everything I'd worked for, everything I'd built, seemed insignificant. She was different. She had always been beautiful, but now she had an undeniable presence. There was a confidence in her walk, a self-assuredness that wasn't there before. Her eyes, once soft and filled with hope, were now steely and calculating. And there it was, the power. She wasn't the same woman I had rejected all those years ago. Emily wasn't the naive girl offering me her heart. She was a woman who had taken control of her own life, built something for herself, something I hadn't even seen coming. She was everything I had wanted to be. I stood up, almost instinctively, as she approached. I couldn't help but notice how she commanded the space. There was a sharpness to her, a fierceness I hadn't known she had. She wasn't here to beg for my attention or to try to win me back. She had come to make her presence known, and she did it effortlessly. "I didn't expect to see you again," I said, trying to sound casual, though my voice betrayed the slight tremor of surprise. She looked at me, her lips curling into a small, knowing smile. "I didn't think I'd be here either," she said. "But it seems we've both gotten exactly what we wanted." The words hit me hard, though I didn't show it. I didn't want to admit it, but I could see it now. She had what I craved: success, power, influence. She had taken everything I had once dreamed of, and here I was, still struggling to climb the ladder. "How's your career?" she asked, her voice calm but pointed. I forced a smile. "Better than ever." "Good. Because I just wanted to remind you of one thing." I raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "I told you I'd make it on my own," she said, her voice steady. And I did. I could feel the weight of her words in the air between us. She didn't have to say it, she didn't have to rub it in. But she did anyway. I had rejected her, dismissed her as if she was just some distraction, and now she was standing here, in front of me, a symbol of everything I had failed to achieve on my own. The woman who had once loved me now had everything I had worked so hard to get. And for the first time, I realized how foolish I had been. "Is there something I can help you with?" I asked, my voice clipped, the bitterness creeping in despite my best efforts to remain neutral. She didn't flinch. Instead, she stepped closer, her eyes locking with mine. "I'm not here to ask for help," she said. "I just wanted you to know, I'm not the same woman you turned away. And neither are you." She turned to leave without another word, leaving me standing there, her words echoing in my mind. I stood there for a long moment, trying to process everything. The realization hit me slowly, like the first drops of rain before the storm. She had become what I had wanted to be, and I had thrown her away. She was no longer just a memory, I could see it in her eyes. She had moved on, become someone bigger than the person I had ever hoped to be. I felt the sting of my regret, but it wasn't enough to change anything. Not yet, at least. I would get what I wanted. I always did. But deep down, I knew the truth. I had spent my whole life chasing power, only to realize that the one thing I had truly wanted, love, was gone forever. And it was too late to fix that now. I couldn't stop thinking about her. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her. Powerful. Confident. Untouchable. The same woman I had rejected so many times. The woman I had pushed away in favor of my ambitions. But now, as I watched her rise, I felt something stir inside me, something I couldn't quite name. Something I wasn't ready to face. It wasn't just that she had power. No. She had everything I ever wanted. She had the success, the influence, the respect I'd spent years chasing. And what had I done? I had let it slip through my fingers. I had been so obsessed with my own goals that I had ignored the one person who truly believed in me. Emily had changed. I could see it in everything she did. Her presence now commanded attention. She didn't need anyone's approval anymore. She stood on her own, strong and unwavering. She was everything I had once dreamed of being. But she had done it without me. Without any help from the person who had once been the center of her world, me. It was impossible to ignore it. Every time I saw her name in the headlines, I felt that gnawing, bitter ache in my chest. Why did it bother me so much? I leaned back in my chair, staring out the window at the city below. The sun had just set, casting long shadows across the skyline. My thoughts were a mess, swirling around in my mind like a storm I couldn't control. "Alex, you all right?" My assistant's voice broke through the fog in my head. I turned to face her, pushing my frustration aside. "Yeah, I'm fine." She raised an eyebrow, but didn't press further. "You've been staring at the city for the past half hour. You sure everything's okay?" "Just thinking," I muttered, rubbing my eyes. "I need a drink." I grabbed my coat and headed for the door, needing to clear my head. The tension in my body was starting to build, and I knew I needed to get out. I wasn't ready to face Emily again, not like this. But I couldn't stop thinking about her. Every damn thought kept coming back to her. When I stepped into the bar, the dim lighting and low hum of conversation did little to soothe me. I ordered a whiskey, hoping the burn would help drown out the thoughts I couldn't seem to escape. The bartender handed me the drink with a knowing smile. I didn't care. As I sipped the amber liquid, my mind drifted back to the last time I saw Emily. She had been standing in my office, her gaze sharp and unflinching. It had been so easy to dismiss her back then, to convince myself that I didn't need her. But now? Now, I was stuck with the feeling that I had made the biggest mistake of my life. What the hell happened to me? I muttered to no one in particular, my voice low and rough. I didn't even realize I had spoken out loud until the bartender glanced over at me. I quickly took another sip, trying to focus on the burn in my throat instead of the storm of emotions swirling in my chest. I couldn't ignore the envy, the anger, the regret. It had all been my fault. I had rejected her. I had told myself I was better than what she was offering me. I thought I was above it, above love. I thought power was what mattered. And look at where I was now, alone, still chasing the same thing, but with nothing to show for it. But Emily? She had everything. How did she do it? I found myself asking again, more to myself than anyone else. She had done what I couldn't. She had built something, something real. She had fought for herself and won. It had been her, all along, who had held the strength and vision I lacked. And I had let pride blind me. I had thrown it all away. The whiskey burned a little less now, but the gnawing ache inside me was still there, eating away at my insides. I didn't know how to get rid of it. I thought back to all the times she had stood by me. I thought about the moments when I had pushed her away, told her I wasn't ready, that I didn't need her. But now I was the one who needed her. She had become everything I had ever wanted, and it was too late to undo what I had done. I placed the empty glass down and stood up, my legs a little unsteady. I hated feeling this way. I hated this weakness creeping up on me, threatening to break me. I had always prided myself on being in control. But now? I didn't know what to think, what to feel. My mind was a constant battlefield of pride, envy, and regret. As I walked out of the bar, I tried to shake it off. But Emily's face was there, always there, in my mind. The same face I had rejected. But now, she was untouchable. She didn't need me. And I couldn't help but wonder, did she ever need me at all? The cold air hit my face as I stepped onto the street, the city lights flickering in the distance. It felt like I was standing in the middle of everything I had worked for, but somehow, I was still empty. The more I tried to fill that emptiness with ambition, the more I realized it wasn't power I was chasing, it was the one thing I had never truly understood. Love. I had rejected it. And now, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And maybe, just maybe, I had thrown away the only person who would ever love me. I had to admit it to myself, I couldn't just stand by and watch. Not anymore. Emily had everything I wanted, and I wasn't about to let her keep it. I was going to beat her at her own game. I had been so focused on power for so long, but I had never expected to see it in the hands of someone like Emily. She had taken everything I'd ever worked for, and now, it was time for me to take it back. If she thought she could just walk in and take over, she was sorely mistaken. It was a simple idea at first. I would find a way to outdo her, to show the world that I was the one who deserved to be on top. I started making moves, securing bigger deals, pushing harder than I ever had before. I watched her every step of the way, trying to find a crack in her perfect facade. But the more I observed, the more I realized, this wasn't the same Emily I had rejected years ago. She was stronger now. More confident. There was a fire in her eyes that I hadn't seen before, and it terrified me. She didn't just have power, she had control. Control over herself, over her success, over the people around her. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't just my rival anymore. She was my equal. The jealousy gnawed at me, like a constant itch that I couldn't scratch. How had she done this? How had she become someone I admired and feared? I needed to win. And so, I planned. It started with the new merger. I knew it was coming up, and I saw an opportunity to outmaneuver her. She had been laying the groundwork for months, making strategic alliances, and I couldn't afford to let her get ahead of me. I had to act fast. I spent days preparing, pushing through meetings, taking risks I hadn't been willing to take before. I worked my connections, digging for information, trying to find a way to gain the upper hand. But no matter what I did, Emily was always one step ahead. Every time I thought I had something, she had already secured it. I watched her at the latest meeting, her posture confident as she stood before the board, presenting her proposal. She didn't falter once. Not even when the room grew tense. Not even when the same people who had once doubted her now looked at her with respect. Alex, one of my colleagues said, breaking me from my thoughts. "You've been quiet. What do you think of the proposal?" I looked at him, forcing a smile. "It's impressive," I said, my voice colder than I intended. "But I have a few suggestions. I think we could approach this from a different angle." Emily glanced over at me, her eyes sharp as they met mine. The corners of her mouth twitched upward, almost like she knew exactly what I was doing. She wasn't going to let me win. She wasn't going to let me take her success from her. And that was when I realized, she was never going to give me the satisfaction. She had moved on, left me in the dust, and I was still caught up in a game I no longer controlled. The more I tried to outdo her, the more I found myself sinking deeper into obsession. I watched her every move, every decision, every interaction. It wasn't just about the merger anymore. It was about her. About beating her. About proving I was the one who deserved to be at the top. But with each failed attempt to outmaneuver her, I started to feel the weight of my own actions. The closer I got to Emily, the more I realized that it wasn't power I wanted. It was her. She had moved on from me. She had outgrown me. She was everything I had ever wanted to be, but I had rejected her when she needed me the most. One evening, after yet another failed meeting where I couldn't make any progress, I found myself at a bar, nursing a drink, trying to drown the frustration. "Is everything okay, Alex?" My assistant's voice broke through my thoughts. She had been with me for a while now, and even though I hated to admit it, she had become one of the few people I trusted. I looked at her, my head heavy. "No," I muttered. "Nothing's okay." She sat down next to me, her eyes filled with concern. "You're obsessing over this." "Over her." "I can't help it," I said, my voice low. "She's better than me. She's taken everything I wanted." "You've had your chances," she said, her tone soft but firm. "But she's not the same woman you knew. You need to stop trying to beat her at her game. You need to find your own." I looked at her, the words sinking in. "She's not the same woman you knew." That truth hit me like a ton of bricks. She had changed, and I had been too blind to see it. I hadn't just lost her love, I had lost my own identity in the process. I stood up, my legs shaky from the alcohol. "I'm going to fix this," I said, more to myself than to anyone else. But I knew it wasn't that simple. Emily wasn't just the woman I had rejected all those years ago. She had become something more. Something I couldn't control. Something I couldn't take back. The competition between Emily and me was no longer about winning. It was about the fact that she had moved forward and left me behind. And I had nothing left but the burning desire to prove I was better than her. But the truth was, I wasn't. And that realization, no matter how hard I tried to fight it, was what stung the most. I watched her from across the room, standing tall and confident, her hands steady as she held the documents in front of her. The same documents I had once hoped to claim as my own. I had thought they were mine. I had believed that everything I worked for would eventually be handed to me, just like the power I had dreamed of. But now, she held them. She was holding everything I once wanted, and it didn't seem to faze her at all. She wasn't angry. She wasn't bitter. She didn't even seem to care that I was watching her. She had nothing left to prove to me. She had already done it. She had become everything I thought I could be. But I had thrown it all away. My chest tightened, and for the first time, I truly understood what regret felt like. It wasn't the pang of a small mistake, it was something heavier. It was the weight of 1,000 wrong decisions, of the lives I had ruined, of the woman I had pushed away. And the worst part? She didn't need me anymore. She had become her own force, standing on her own 2 feet. She had the power, the respect, and the strength I had always craved, and she had gotten it without me. While I was busy chasing something, convinced that I was entitled to it, she was quietly taking control of her own life, and she had done it better than I ever could. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't here to take anything from me anymore. She had moved on. I had lost her. And I couldn't get her back. Not now. Not ever. I took a step forward, but my feet felt like they were dragging through the floor, like the weight of my own choices was holding me back. I couldn't avoid it any longer. The truth was staring me in the face. "Emily," I finally said, my voice a little hoarse. She didn't look at me immediately, but I could see the slight stiffening of her shoulders as she turned to face me. There was no anger in her eyes, no resentment. Just that quiet strength that seemed to flow from her like a natural part of her being. "Alex," she said, her voice calm, controlled. But I could hear the distance between us in the way she spoke my name. "What are you doing here?" I swallowed hard, forcing myself to meet her gaze. "I've made a mess of things." She didn't say anything at first. She just stared at me, the silence stretching between us. I could feel the weight of the years that had passed, the years I had spent ignoring her, the years I had wasted on my own selfish desires. You have, she said, finally, her tone not cold, but matter of fact. I nodded, ashamed. I never should have pushed you away. I thought I could have it all, power, success, everything. But I was wrong. And now I'm stuck, trying to fix everything. She raised an eyebrow, her lips curling into a faint smile that didn't reach her eyes. You don't get it, do you? She asked. You're still trying to fix things by doing things your way. You think you can just work harder, try more, fight for it. But Alex, you've already lost it. The moment you let me go, the moment you decided your ambition was more important than me, you lost everything. The words stung, more than I had expected. I had known I had hurt her, but hearing it from her, hearing how much my decisions had cost me, it was a shock to my system. I didn't want to admit it, but she was right. I had thrown everything away. I never thought I'd lose you, I said quietly. I didn't know what I had until it was gone. Emily stepped forward slightly, her expression softening. For a moment, I saw the woman I had once known, the one who had believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. But the softness didn't last. The distance between us was too wide now, too ingrained. You lost me the moment you decided I wasn't worth your time, she said, the words coming out gently but with an edge. I loved you, Alex. I was always there for you. But love isn't enough if the other person doesn't see you. Doesn't see your worth. You were so focused on being the best, on controlling everything, that you never stopped to look around and realize what you had. I wanted to say something, to make it better. To apologize, to beg for her forgiveness, to try and make everything right. But I couldn't. The words felt hollow. They wouldn't change what had already been done. I'm sorry, I said, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect anything from you. I wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what I lost. She nodded, her eyes meeting mine with a depth that made my chest ache. I hope you do, Alex. Because that's the first step. The next step is figuring out who you are without the power, without the ambition. Can you do that? I had no answer. I wanted to say I could. I wanted to believe that I could change. But deep down, I knew the truth. I had been so obsessed with power, with winning, with being the best, that I had lost everything that actually mattered. I looked at her one last time, the woman I had once pushed away, now standing taller than I had ever imagined. She didn't need me. She never had. And as I turned to leave, I finally understood what I had thrown away. But understanding it didn't change anything. The damage was done. And now, I had to live with the consequences. I couldn't let her win. That's what I kept telling myself as I stared at the report in front of me, the same one I had poured my soul into for the last few months. Emily had already completed her version, and it was better. Not just by a little. By a lot. It was as if everything I had done, every step I had taken, was futile compared to the power she wielded now. I had worked so hard to climb to the top. And when I finally got there, the view wasn't what I expected. It was cold. Empty. I had nothing to fill the space, no one to share it with. The constant drive for success, for power, had led me down a path I didn't recognize. I couldn't even remember why I wanted it anymore. It was supposed to be about respect, about being admired, about proving everyone wrong. But it was all just noise now. I had pushed away the only person who ever truly believed in me. And now? Now, I was alone, standing at the peak of my success, staring down at the life I had created, and it felt hollow. I could still feel her presence, even though she was miles away. Emily had done it. She had reached the place I thought I could only dream of. And there she was, standing at the top, looking down at me, not with contempt, but with quiet strength. She had always been stronger than I gave her credit for. The more I tried to compete with her, the more I realized I was only competing against myself. I wasn't trying to beat her at her own game anymore. No, I was trying to take back what I had lost. But the more I fought for it, the more I understood I didn't want it anymore. What I wanted was her. But it was too late. I had already lost her. "Alex," came the familiar voice, soft and steady. I turned to see Emily standing in the doorway of my office. For a moment, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me, but no, she was really standing there, looking at me with those eyes that once held nothing but trust and warmth. I couldn't stop myself. I stood up, forcing my voice to stay calm. "What are you doing here?" Her eyes softened, but there was no sympathy in them, only understanding. "I came to talk." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to tell her that I was sorry, that I had made a mistake and that I would change, but I knew better than that. I couldn't just walk back into her life after everything I had done. There was no simple apology for the years I had wasted, for the way I had treated her, for the choices I had made. She took a few steps closer, her presence still commanding. "You've been trying to fight me. You've been trying to take everything from me, but you've already lost." She paused, her gaze intense, holding mine. "I'm not the same woman you pushed away. I'm not fighting you for power anymore. I've moved on." I wanted to say something, anything. But the words felt useless. She was right. I had already lost. And I had nothing left to offer her. "Do you realize that?" she asked, her voice quieter now, almost as if she was speaking to herself. "You've been chasing power for so long that you forgot what it was that really mattered. Now, you've come to the end of that road, and there's nothing left for you." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I had been so focused on winning, on proving my worth, on climbing the ladder. And in the process, I had lost sight of what was important. She had always been there for me, always. But I had ignored it, thinking that I could build something better without her. I thought I was doing the right thing, I muttered, mostly to myself. I thought I was doing it for us, for the future. She shook her head slowly, the disappointment clear in her eyes. "You were doing it for yourself. And that's where you went wrong." I felt a surge of anger, but it wasn't directed at her. It was directed at myself, at the choices I had made. "And now?" I asked bitterly. "Now you're standing here telling me I've wasted it all? That I don't deserve anything?" "No," she said, her voice surprisingly gentle. "I'm telling you that you've wasted the chance to have everything you ever wanted. You had love, Alex. You had it, but you threw it away for power." Her words were like a punch to the gut, but I couldn't deny it. She was right. I had sacrificed everything that mattered for something that, in the end, was hollow. Power wasn't what I wanted. What I had wanted, what I still wanted, was her. But now, I couldn't even claim that. She had moved on, and I had no one to blame but myself. I sat back down in my chair, the weight of my failures pressing down on me. "What do you want from me, Emily?" My voice was barely a whisper. "I can't undo what I've done." She stepped closer, but she didn't touch me. She didn't need to. "I don't want anything from you, Alex. I've moved on. I'm not the same woman who once begged you to see me." I've found my place in this world, and I'm not waiting for you to change anymore. But I want you to understand, this power you've been chasing? It's not everything. And you can't run from yourself forever. I looked up at her, really seeing her for the first time. She wasn't just the woman I had rejected anymore. She was strong, capable, and independent. She didn't need me, and she never had. She was better off without me. And that was the hardest part to accept. "I'm sorry," I said, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. She nodded, her gaze softening. "You should be. But don't apologize to me. Apologize to yourself." With those final words, she turned and walked out of the room, leaving me with nothing but the echo of her footsteps and the crushing weight of my own mistakes. I stood at the crossroads. I couldn't remember the last time I felt this conflicted. In front of me was everything I'd ever wanted. The power. The recognition. The respect. It had been my goal from the moment I realized what I wanted in life: success, dominance, control. And I had fought tooth and nail to get here. I had sacrificed so much for it. But now that I had it, standing at the peak, I realized how hollow it all felt. I thought I wanted power. I thought that's what would make me feel whole. But what had I given up to get here? I had lost Emily. I had lost the one person who truly mattered, the one person who had stood by me when no one else would. And now, I was standing here, surrounded by everything I thought I wanted, yet I felt emptier than ever. Could I really go back? Could I try to fix things with her after everything I had done? I ran a hand through my hair, frustration bubbling in my chest. I had spent so much time focusing on being better, on being the person who deserved to be at the top. But I wasn't that person anymore. I had changed. I had become someone I didn't even recognize. And Emily? She had been the one who knew me. She had been the one who cared for me, who believed in me when I couldn't even believe in myself. And I had rejected her. Over and over again. I thought I was making the right decision, focusing on my career, my ambitions. But what good was all of it if I had no one to share it with? Power without love was just empty. And now, I had nothing left to show for it. I couldn't run from the truth anymore. "Alex," I heard a voice from behind me, snapping me out of my thoughts. I turned to see my assistant standing in the doorway of my office, her expression serious. "You've been staring out that window for an hour. What's going on?" I didn't answer immediately. I couldn't. The choice was weighing on me like 1,000 pounds. The path ahead was clear, but the consequences were terrifying. If I chose to keep pursuing this empty victory, to continue climbing this ladder alone, I might end up just like the person I had become. Someone who had nothing but power. Nothing but the hollow shell of success. And if I chose Emily? If I made the decision to let go of my pride, to admit that I had made a mistake and that I wanted her back? Could I ever fix the damage I had done? Would she even want me? Would she forgive me for everything? "I don't know," I finally said, my voice quieter than I intended. "I don't know if I can keep doing this." She frowned, stepping into the room. "You're talking about work, right?" I shook my head, my hands gripping the edge of the desk. "No. I'm talking about life. I thought I could have it all. The power, the success. But I've lost everything that truly matters." I met her gaze, finally saying the words I had been too afraid to admit. I lost her. Her eyes softened with understanding. "Emily?" "Yeah," I muttered, my gaze dropping to the floor. I pushed her away. I've spent my entire life thinking that power would fill this void inside me. But it hasn't. I've got everything I thought I wanted, but it's all empty. Have you tried reaching out to her? She asked cautiously. I shook my head, frustration building. I don't even know where to start. I don't think she wants anything to do with me anymore. She hesitated for a moment before speaking again, her voice gentle. Maybe you're right. But you'll never know if you don't try. People make mistakes, Alex. You're not perfect. But if you don't make this right, you'll regret it forever. Her words hit me like a wake-up call. How long had I been telling myself that it was too late? How long had I been hiding behind the excuse that I couldn't fix it? The truth was, I hadn't even tried. I hadn't done anything to repair the damage I had caused. The door to my office clicked open, and my thoughts were interrupted by a familiar voice. Alex. I froze. My heart skipped a beat as I turned toward the door. There she was, Emily. Standing in the doorway, looking just as confident as ever, but there was something different in her eyes. She wasn't angry. She wasn't disappointed. She was simply waiting. I felt a pang in my chest, and for a moment I couldn't speak. I had been so focused on what I wanted, so consumed by my own ambition, that I had forgotten how important she had been to me. How important she still was. She stepped inside the room, closing the door softly behind her. There was a moment of silence, a moment where all the years between us seemed to collapse. All the mistakes I had made, all the pain I had caused, it all came crashing down on me. Emily, I finally whispered, my voice hoarse. She didn't respond immediately. She just stood there, her gaze steady as she looked at me. There was no anger in her eyes, no hatred. There was only calm. And something else. Something I hadn't seen before. Strength. I came to see if you were ready to talk, she said, her voice measured but soft. But I'm not here to ask for your apology, Alex. I'm not here to fix things. I've moved on. My heart clenched at her words. She had moved on. She had built her life without me, and now she was standing in front of me, stronger than I ever imagined. She didn't need me anymore. And I couldn't blame her. I've made a choice, she continued, her eyes softening slightly. But I'm not the one who needs to make things right. You are. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. This was it. The moment of reckoning. I could choose to keep chasing power, to keep holding on to my pride. Or I could admit that what mattered most wasn't the power, it was her. I don't know if I can fix this, I said, my voice shaking. But I can't keep running from what I've lost. I can't keep pretending that what I have now means anything without you. Her gaze softened, but she didn't say anything. The silence between us was heavy, but it wasn't filled with anger anymore. It was filled with understanding. I'm ready to make a choice, I said, meeting her gaze. And I choose you. They came crawling back. It was the same as before, only this time the roles were reversed. I could see it in their eyes, fear. Regret. They were no longer the ones with the power. No longer the ones mocking me from the high places they'd built for themselves. Now, they were on their knees, asking for something I had never thought I would have the power to give. Forgiveness. I sat in my office, the familiar hum of the city outside somehow distant, as if I were no longer a part of it. It felt almost unreal, seeing them stand in front of me, their pride and arrogance shattered, their voices trembling as they begged for my mercy. They had laughed at me when I had nothing. When I was just an underdog, a man they dismissed as nothing more than a stepping stone. But now, I was the one with power. I was the one who held the fate of those who had once stood above me in my hands. I'm sorry, Alex. We were wrong, one of them said, his voice low, his eyes darting nervously between me and the ground. We never should have doubted you. We were blinded by our own success. We should have treated you better. Another stepped forward, the once proud figure now slumped, deflated. We were selfish. We never thought you'd get this far. Please, Alex. Please forgive us. I could feel the weight of their words pressing down on me, but I remained silent, my fingers drumming on the edge of the desk. Part of me wanted to laugh. To mock them the way they had mocked me. To tell them that it was too late for apologies. They had chosen their side long ago, and now they could deal with the consequences. But another part of me, the part that had been humbled, that had learned the price of power, wanted to listen. To understand. Could I forgive them? Was I capable of letting go of the bitterness that had consumed me for so long? The room was thick with tension. The silence between us grew heavier, the weight of my decision bearing down on me. I don't know, I finally said, my voice quiet but firm. You think saying sorry changes everything? They looked at me, their faces full of desperation, as if they were hoping for something, anything, to make it right. But I couldn't bring myself to make the decision yet. They didn't deserve forgiveness, not yet. Not when they had treated me like dirt, when they had kicked me when I was down. You laughed at me when I had nothing, I continued, my words cold and deliberate. You mocked me, belittled me. You thought I'd never make it. And now, you want me to just forget all of that because you're scared? Because you see what I've become? The words stung. Even I could hear the bitterness in my voice, the anger that had been building inside me for years. But beneath that anger, there was something else, something I couldn't ignore. Regret. I regretted the times I had let them get to me. I regretted the things I had done to get to this point. And most of all, I regretted how long I had clung to the idea of revenge, of making them pay for what they had done. But I had learned something over the past few months. True power didn't come from revenge. It didn't come from punishing others for their wrongs. True power came from redemption, both for yourself and for others. And if I couldn't forgive them, how could I ever move on? How could I ever be free of the bitterness that had held me captive for so long? I don't know if I can forgive you, I said, my voice quieter now, the weight of my own words sinking in. But I'll think about it. I'll think about whether I want to keep holding on to the past or if I'm ready to let it go. They looked at me in shock, clearly not expecting that answer. For a moment, I wondered if I had made a mistake. Maybe I should have sent them away. Maybe I should have let them feel the full weight of what they had done to me. But deep down, I knew that forgiveness wasn't about them, it was about me. About whether I could let go of the hatred that had consumed me for so long. The days that followed were filled with uncertainty. I didn't know what to do. I kept going back and forth in my mind, replaying the past, thinking about all the times I had been humiliated, all the times they had laughed in my face. It wasn't easy. I didn't want to forgive them. I wanted them to feel the same pain they had made me feel. But I knew I couldn't keep living like this. I had spent so much time consumed by bitterness and revenge. It had destroyed me, piece by piece. I had spent so many years believing that power came from dominating others, from taking what was rightfully mine. But it wasn't enough. It never would be. I had to decide whether I wanted to stay trapped in that mindset, or if I wanted to move forward, to find peace. To choose redemption. I walked into the room where they were waiting, sitting on the edge of their seats, nervous, unsure of what was coming. The look in their eyes was one of hope, but also fear. They were scared, and they had every right to be. Alex, the man who had spoken before, began, his voice tentative. "We're truly sorry. If you can find it in yourself to forgive us." I held up my hand to stop him. "I've made my decision." I took a deep breath, trying to find the words. "I forgive you," I said, my voice steady. "But this isn't just about what you did to me. It's about what I've done to myself. I've been holding on to my anger for far too long. And that's not who I want to be anymore." They looked at each other in surprise, as if they couldn't quite believe what I was saying. But I knew it was the right choice. It was the only choice. "You've got a chance to make things right," I continued. "But you have to prove it. I can forgive you, but you have to show me that you've learned from this. That you're willing to do the work." They nodded, their eyes wide with relief. And in that moment, I realized something. True power didn't come from control. It didn't come from domination. It came from the ability to forgive, to heal, to grow. And maybe, just maybe, it would be enough to start over. I couldn't undo what had been done. No matter how hard I tried, I could never change the past. I couldn't go back and unreject her. I couldn't take back the hurt I had caused. All the times I had pushed her away, told her I wasn't ready, convinced myself that ambition was more important than love. But maybe, just maybe, I could start again. I stood by the window of my apartment, looking out over the city. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow across the skyline. The world seemed so still, so calm, and yet inside of me, everything was in turmoil. My thoughts kept returning to Emily. To the way she had looked at me when she left that day. It wasn't hatred in her eyes, not even disappointment. It was something else. Something I couldn't quite place. I could still see the way she held herself when she walked away, stronger than I had ever known her to be. And I couldn't help but feel proud of her. Proud of the woman she had become. But I also felt something else, a longing. A desire to make things right. It wasn't about power anymore. It wasn't about proving that I was worthy. I had spent so long chasing that feeling, chasing something that could never truly satisfy me. I had come to realize that what I had been searching for was never power, it was love. The love I had thrown away. The love I had been too proud to accept. And now, I had nothing left but the realization that I had lost it all. I picked up the phone. The weight of it in my hand was heavier than I had expected. What if she didn't want to talk to me? What if she had moved on, found someone else who deserved her? The thought hit me like a punch to the gut, but I pushed it away. I had to try. I couldn't live with the regret if I didn't at least give it a shot. I dialed her number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. And then, she answered. "Alex?" Her voice was calm, but I could hear the hesitation, the uncertainty. I didn't blame her. I wasn't sure what I was doing either. "Emily," I said, my voice thick with emotion. I don't know if you'll want to hear this, but I need to say it. I've been so caught up in my own ambition, in my own pride, that I pushed you away. And now I see that I made the biggest mistake of my life. I can't undo what I did, but I want to try to make things right. I want to." She cut me off gently. "Alex, I don't need you to fix everything. I don't need you to make promises you can't keep. I just need you to understand what happened. I loved you. I really did. But I had to let go because I couldn't keep waiting for you to see me. I couldn't keep putting myself in a position where I was the one doing all the giving and you were taking it all without ever acknowledging how much I was giving. Her words hit me harder than anything else. She was right. She had always been right. I had been blind to everything that truly mattered. I understand, I said softly. I understand now. And I'm so sorry, Emily. I wish I could take it all back. There was a long pause. My heart pounded in my chest as I waited for her response. I wasn't expecting anything. Not forgiveness, not even a second chance. But I had to say it. I had to apologize. I had to make it clear that I knew what I had lost. I know, she finally said, her voice quiet but steady. And I'm not angry anymore, Alex. I've let go of the past. I had to. I couldn't keep holding on to something that wasn't coming back. But that doesn't mean I haven't thought about you. It doesn't mean I haven't wondered, what would have happened if you had chosen differently? Her words were like a balm to my broken soul, but they didn't make the pain go away. It was a painful realization, but it was the truth. The woman I had once pushed away had moved on. She had built a life without me, and I couldn't change that. But at least she was happy. She was strong. She didn't need me. I know I don't deserve it, I said, my voice breaking slightly, but if there's ever a chance, if there's ever a moment where we can start over, I'll be here. I'll be here, ready to make it right. Because I want to try. I want to try to be the man you believed in. There was a long silence on the other end. And then, she spoke, her voice softer now, almost tender. I don't know what the future holds, Alex, she said. But right now, I can't give you what you want. I can't go back to the way things were. I've learned so much about myself, about what I deserve, and I can't go back to living in a shadow. I need to be me. I need to keep moving forward. And I realized, with a sinking feeling, that she was right. We could never go back. What we had was gone. But the future, her future, was her own. And I could either stand in her way or support her. I could choose to keep clinging to the past, or I could let her go and embrace the present. I understand, I whispered. I'll respect that. I just wanted you to know that I've changed. I've learned. Good, she said softly. I hope you have. We both fell silent. And for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't felt before. Peace. The kind of peace that comes when you stop fighting, when you stop trying to force something that wasn't meant to be. I had no idea what the future held, but I knew that whatever it was, I couldn't go forward carrying the weight of my past mistakes. I couldn't keep chasing power. I had to let go of the need to control everything. I ended the call, letting the silence fill the room. It wasn't a perfect resolution. It wasn't the happy ending I had once imagined. But it was real. It was honest. And for the first time, I felt like I could move on. Not as the man who had once rejected love, but as someone who had learned the true cost of what it meant to love and to be loved in return. The path ahead wasn't clear. But I wasn't running from it anymore. I was ready to face it.